So today we're going to dive into a single powerful chapter from the book of Proverbs. It's this piece of ancient wisdom that really gets into a timeless human struggle, that tension between our own careful plans and this much larger unseen design. All right, let's jump right in.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You map everything out perfectly, you think you've accounted for every little thing, and then bam, life throws a curveball. That feeling, that exact tension, is really at the heart of everything we're about to explore.
So the text starts with a reality that we all just get. We are the architects of our own intentions. We think, we strategize, we set a course in our minds and in our hearts.
And there it is. The other shoe drops, the second half of the whole equation. This one verse sets up the central drama for the entire chapter. What happens when our plans meet a higher power's purpose? Let's see how this all plays out.
Okay, so with that core tension laid out, our plans versus some higher purpose, the chapter first dives into what that relationship actually looks like. And it's not really about choosing one or the other, it's more about understanding how our plans are meant to fit inside a much bigger framework. What's so interesting here is that it's framed almost like a partnership. It says we own the plans of the heart, that's our job. But the final result, the proper answer, well, that comes from a higher source. So the advice it gives is absolutely crucial. Commit your work, your effort to that higher power, and then your plans can find their footing and actually get established. All right, so if the key is to commit our work, that kind of brings up a new question, doesn't it? Like, what kind of person's work gets established? And this is where the chapter pivots, shifting the focus away from our external plans and onto our internal character, our moral compass, if you will. This is such a sharp insight into human nature. We're amazing at justifying our own actions, aren't we? Our ways seem pure to us. But this passage says, hang on, the real measure isn't what you do on the outside or how you spin it. It's the why, the motives. That's what gets put on the scale. And that brings us to maybe one of the most famous lines ever written about character. It's just a straight-up, powerful warning. Pride isn't just some personality flaw here. It's presented as the thing that comes right before failure. It is the ultimate blind spot. This lays it out perfectly. It's like there are two roads you can walk down. On one side, you've got the proud path. It might even look successful, much gain, but it's all tangled up with injustice, and ultimately it leads to destruction. And then you've got the humble path. It's about being lowly in spirit, choosing righteousness over just getting more stuff. And according to the text, that's the path that leads to real, lasting prosperity. So this whole focus on our internal character, humility over pride, it naturally leads to the next question. How does that character actually show up in the world? Well, the chapter is super clear on this. It finds its voice through our words. They're the most direct expression of what's going on inside us. Just look at the imagery here. It's incredible. Wise and gracious words aren't just nice to hear. They're like a honeycomb, sweet and even healing to the bones. They build people up. But in total contrast, the words of a scoundrel are like a scorching fire. They don't build, they just burn everything down, stir up conflict, and tear people apart. The message is loud and clear. Words have real, tangible power. The text puts a huge value on this quality it calls prudence, which is basically just applied wisdom. And again, check out that metaphor. It's not just a skill set, it's a fountain of life. That suggests that good judgment is this renewable resource that keeps you and everyone around you going. So we've got this blueprint for how to act as a person. Be humble, use words that heal, act with good judgment. The chapter then takes this whole idea and scales it way up, asking how these same principles apply at the highest level, to leadership, to justice, to power, using the ancient example of a king. This is basically a how-to guide for just leadership. A leader's authority, their throne, isn't built on force. It's built on righteousness. Their words have to line up with justice, they need to truly hate corruption, and they've got to surround themselves with honest advisors. And when a leader gets this right, their favor is described as being like a rain cloud in spring, something that's life-giving and welcome to everyone. So after exploring character and words and what just leadership looks like, the chapter brings us full circle. We're right back to the question we started with. We've seen how much our choices matter, for sure. But what about the things we just can't control? The final verses return to that epic tension between random chance and some kind of grand design. Yeah, after hearing so much about how our choices matter, being humble, speaking wisely, acting justly, You really have to wonder, right? What about randomness? What about pure dumb luck? Does that have any place in this whole worldview? And this is it, the final, kind of mind-bending statement of the whole chapter. Casting the lot back then was the equivalent of us flipping a coin or rolling dice. It was a purely random act. The text totally acknowledges the randomness of it, the lot just falling into the lap. But then it concludes that the outcome, the decision that comes from it, is still governed by that higher power. It's a pretty profound claim that even acts of pure chance are somehow part of a larger design. So, if we boil this whole deep dive down, what have we got? Well, human planning is vital, but it's only half the equation. Our inner character is really the foundation of everything, and it shows up in the words we use. Real success and stability are rooted in doing the right thing, especially for leaders. And finally, this ancient worldview suggests there's a higher order that's in control of even the things that look like pure chance to us. And that really leaves us with a final thought to take away from all this. In our world, a world that puts so much emphasis on personal control, on data, on being a self-made success, what does it mean to even consider that our best laid plans are only one part of a much bigger story? Definitely something to think about.